There's levels to this thing. I can never front, yeah, there's levels to this thing. Within my mind, so I know I'm about to take the win. Beat on solid rock, so you know I ain't gon' sing. Hey, there's levels to this thing. I'ma work till I get to see my king. Feeling like King James, like I'm about to win a ring. Man. We got the same matches, we at different levels. I'ma have to find a way to push the pedal. But my Christian race to get the gold medal.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the First Love TV show. I'm Andrea, host, and I'm here with Ricarda, Francisca,
hello,
and Jeremy.
Hey guys.
We've been looking at the parable of the prodigal son, and last week we looked at the spirit of evil independence, and this week we're going to continue the discussion of looking at the different spirits which led the prodigal son to make the decisions in which he made. When we look at the beginning of the story, we see the prodigal son in a house with his father and with his brother. At the end of the story, he's feeding with swine. He's left with nothing. So what leads him, or what led him to get to such a place like this?
Well, I believe that he was led by the spirit of worthlessness. I'm sure, you know, while he was feeding swine for a living, that he had the opportunity to really think long and hard about the decisions that he made that led him to where, you know, his current circumstance. And the Greek word there's a Greek word called Belial, if I'm saying it correctly. Mm-hmm. And what that word means is to be worthless, to be useless, to be good for nothing. And I believe that he was led to this point by the spirit of Belial to feel this worthlessness. And that's exactly what the enemy wants to do. You know, the enemy basically accomplished his goal of leading him to a place where he had nothing, a place where he would feel worthless in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. It says clearly in the Bible that the enemy has come to steal, to kill, to destroy, you know.
SKD for short.
And that's the inevitable, and that's what the enemy seeks for all of us, is to lead us to a place where he'll steal from us, kill us, and then at the end of the day, destroy us. And if you look at the prodigal son's life, I mean, that's the end picture. Like that's exactly what it is to make. He accomplished the goal to make him nothing, and that's what anyone wants to do in each of our lives. And it might look like the journeys that we take, it looks like fun. I'm sure the prodigal son seemed like he was having fun, having parties, going out, spending his money, had everything to do. I mean, he had no boundaries, no restrictions. And it led him to a place where the money that the enemy stole from him, so no inheritance. He killed him almost. I mean, because the father said, "This my son was dead," and he destroyed him because his life was destroyed. So all three things was manifested in his life. So yeah.
And then you also, like you guys haven't mentioned, it leads, and I feel like that's what happened with the spirit. It leads you, and it's not something that happens like sometimes it takes a while, and you don't see it. You don't see it. Sometimes it takes time, but at your end is always like, your end is always worse than how you started. And I feel like that's what the spirit does to you.
Yeah, even when I was in college, I had a roommate. I remember I was looking forward to go to college, and I was so excited because I was like, wow, I'm gonna have a great roommate. I looked at her on Facebook, and everything looked great. And I realized that when I was with her, and this is what happens to youth so much, when I was with her and we were roommates, she just began indulging in smoking weed. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is this? What is she smoking? What is she doing? And people don't realize that once you start these little drugs, you think like, oh, my friends are just smoking. Let me just try this small cigarette. Let me just try this weed a little bit. Let me just try this. They don't know that as they're doing that, at least to their end. And I realized that as she was doing this, and as she was doing other things, she began to fail in her classes. She was flunking out of school. It also led to her getting like mental issues and mental problems. And that is what the plan of the enemy is. He just wants to lead you on a small journey, and that small journey may be, okay, this little cigarette, this little drug, and by the time you know it, you get involved in hard drugs, and by the time you know, you get to a place where you cannot go back. And it's always just that little door. Once you open one small door, it leads to another one, and that is what the plan of the enemy is.
And that's exactly what the enemy does. He comes in very cunning ways. He's very cunning. If he literally, you know, allowed us to see his plan, like we would choose the opposite way. But he comes in ways that we don't recognize. You know, oh, drinking here, it's a social thing. You know, you're drinking.
People say
you
I'm
go
a social
out
drinker.
And, you know, you take, yeah, exactly. You go out and you know, you
hour.
have one shot or whatever. Before you know it, you become an alcoholic. You're dependent on this substance for, you know, for your high or for your peace of mind or whatever they say it is, you know. And that's what he does. He comes literally to steal from us. He's not stealing our money, but he comes to steal our joy. He comes to steal, you know, your life, you know, the things that maybe you aspire to be. He'll steal that from you, you know, and then before you know it, you are literally nothing. You have nothing. You've wasted away your life. You wasted away your youth, your opportunities.
And I feel like I also piggyback, like this spirit is very sad, especially when you see it in people. Like even when you're reading the story, like his end result was very sad. Like how can you, like can you imagine right now seeing him and he's feeding, like he'll look like a mad person to you.
He was begging for some of the food.
Yeah, from a pig. Like it's very sad. And I feel like that's our generation, like we're speaking about, that's what the devil wants to do with us. And I remember, I know, like, I have a mutual friend with someone, and she was telling me about a story about how she went to a party, and she, the person was like, there was somebody there, right, and then they were drinking and things like that, and that led her to, she passed out, and she actually even got raped at the party. And even with that, I mean, it took her time for her to, like, overcome what happened to her, but just like her, she was able to overcome it. The prodigal son was able to overcome his situation too. But there are people out there that sometimes don't overcome it. And their end is like they want to commit suicide. And that's what the devil wants to do to us. Like you were saying, he wants to steal, kill, and destroy. His end is to destroy us, to make sure we're dead, to make sure what we were meant to be, we don't achieve it and things like that. So we have to be like alert always to make sure that that spirit doesn't enter us like it did to the prodigal son.
Yeah, like what you said. You said that he wants to make us to a point where we don't achieve what we want to achieve. And the part that stands up to me in that story is like when he came to himself, like when he came to the realization of what God had originally intended for him to become. When he came to that mind, like, wow, like I've fallen so short of like what God's original plan was for me. And I feel like because the Bible, God has a will for us. Like that's why Jesus always prayed that thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That means like
the will is already
that God has a will for us. Like he has a plan for each and every one of our lives. And it's like a master plan for us. Like, but the thing is that the spirit of worthlessness, like Francisco said, like it leads you away. And it leads you away from the Father's will for your life. And it takes you to a place where, like a far country. But when he came to himself, when he realized that, okay, this is not what God's original plan was for me. I had such a better life before that, and I could have even gone higher. But the spirit of worthlessness takes you to a place where it's like it's so less. It's like less. It's way less than the original plan. You're so, even if he gets back to a certain level, he'll never get back to the place where God called him for. It's like less. It's a degraded version, and the devil wants to give us a degraded version of our lives. He wants to make our lives half. Even if we get salvation, even if we get to heaven, like it's like it will always be less. It will always be less. Like, instead of having more churches, you have half of that. Instead of having more souls, you have half of that. Instead of having that better job, you'll have half of that job. It's like, even if he can't kill you completely, he couldn't kill the prodigal son completely. Like, he still bounced back, but he'll never get back to the will of the Father. I'm pretty sure the Father had amazing plans for the Son.
But like, just like you were saying, it's true actually because even, when he came back to his father's house, you can realize his father told the older son that, I mean, this is all I'm giving him, but you have everything else. So it's like you're saying, it deprives you of what your ultimate goal is supposed to be. So.
And regret, I think like worthlessness. Like, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I know there's things that I've done or that like places where I've gone where, and at the time, it didn't seem so bad, you know, but then afterwards, a heavy sense of worthlessness, but guilt, you know, regret set in, and And I'm sure, like, you know, even going back home, like, even though he was accepted back home, that regret, that guilt is always going to sit with him. And even like Christians, even though we get saved and we have salvation, you know, we know we're forgiven. Sometimes that regret, you're looking back like, man, like, how did I even get there? Like, why did I even date that guy? Or, you know, like, what was I thinking? I regret it. You know, I regret allowing myself to be put in that position, you know, when you know you put yourself in that position, and that heavy sense of guilt. And I think guilt is so strong, it makes you feel worthless to the point where people commit suicide because they feel like, you know, like, I'm nothing, like, I'm worth nothing. Let me take my life, you know.
And I think that's like where having your identity in Christ like comes in big, because it's like, even and that's what one thing, sometimes we're worth more than we think, but the enemy puts a spirit of worthlessness in us to make us feel like, nah, you're still not worth anything.
Yeah,
exactly.
Who do you think you are?
Yeah, so and I think sometimes we have to put ourselves in the prodigal son's shoes, because I was hearing someone saying that for the first time, she told me, like, for the first time I looked at myself and I put myself in the prodigal son's shoes, and like that hit me hard, because like we always think of the prodigal son as some drunkard who smoked and then like was a prostitute, like with prostitutes, and then he was worthless. But like we have to put ourselves in our in his shoes and be like, sometimes we've come to that place, but we can't cut out that redemption part, because even though we feel like, oh, sometimes our sins make us worthless, that God has already broken the power of sin by dying on the cross for that. So I think that also like is like heartwarming for like anybody that feels like, oh, I'm worthless, or guilt or anything. Like, God has redemption and love for you at the cross. So I think that's good too.
Yeah, and I think as youth, one of the things that even gets us to go into these areas or indulge in these pleasures of sin is the fact of sometimes we get peer pressure, a lot of peer pressure, a lot of pressure from friends, pressure from social media, even things that you watch as a Christian. Sometimes when you watch things, you begin to think like, oh, I mean, what I see on TV, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, all of these different things, you begin to encounter that on a daily basis, because we're in this world. And these are things that we experience on a daily basis, and these things can cause you or lead you on a path that God hasn't planned for you, God hasn't destined for you.
That's very true.
If you're tuning in to the First Love TV show, we've been talking about the spirit of worthlessness, and we said that this spirit can lead one to destruction. The spirit of worthlessness is a spirit that comes from the enemy, because his plan is to kill, to steal, and destroy. But God's plan for you is to give you life. And we said that it's important that you're not led by the pressures of this world, you're not led by influences from friends or peers, but that you're led by the Spirit of God. And with that said, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back to continue this discussion.
Hi guys, my name is Francisca,
And welcome back to the First Love. What up, y'all? Welcome back to the First Love TV show. We've been looking at the spirit of worthlessness, and we're going to continue this segment of our discussion looking more at this spirit, and also investigating what are some of the tools that the enemy uses in order to get us to a place of worthlessness. So guys, what are some of these tools or some of the things that the enemy uses in order to get us to a place where we feel worthless?
I feel acceptance is one of them. Most of the time when you're looking for acceptance, you look for it in the wrong place, because you want to find love.
For love in the wrong place.
Yeah, that's how it always is. And just like the prodigal son, he was looking for these things in the wrong places, like with his friends. And then what happens is that even at the end of it, they left him. Like, he was left lonely. And these are the things that causes depression and loneliness and things like that. So because we want to be accepted by maybe the crowd or people we're hanging out with, we do things that we usually won't do. So
Even in Proverbs 19 verse 4, it says, wealth maketh many friends, but the poor is separated from his neighbor. So like having material possessions and having money, having people around you, people are interested in the things you have, and you think that people are accepting you for who you are, but they're accepting you for what you have. And that's exactly what happened to the prodigal son. And I feel like that's why having a church family and having people that are faithful to you is so important, because when you find yourself in the church and around people, they love you despite your shortcomings or your many failures. And true friends and true people that you can rely on are invaluable. That's why the Bible says a faithful man who can find, because faithfulness is it's not a conditional thing. It's not a conditional trait. It's unconditional. And that's why we always have to show the love to others, and it helps when you have people around you who accept you for who you are. And you don't have to go looking for love in the wrong places, just like the prodigal son did. But when you surround yourself with people who love and support you in a godly manner, and it helps you and it helps you thrive. That's what I would say.
Yeah, and I feel like you can also relate this, what happened to him back to his house. Like when he was able to go back, he was accepted by his family, but his his friends that they left him. Right. Yeah. So yeah, sometimes we look for acceptance in the wrong places. But if you're put in a situation like you're in a church, you know that people will genuinely love you for who you are. Yeah. So it's very important.
And the Father's love, I think, is a good point, because
you said he had his arms. He was looking for him all the time.
Yeah, the whole time, and you find that there's no one that can accept you more than Jesus Christ. Right. And Jesus' love it surpasses all. And it says nothing can separate us. Right. Nothing can separate us from the love of God. Right. And it doesn't matter like where you are, where you at. It always finds you. That's why the Father was always looking for him. And when he came, he embraced him and wrapped his around him, put his ring on his finger and a robe around him. And it just shows you that even though he was so far gone, and that acceptance that he was looking for was in the house the entire time. Yeah.
And then I guess also we can say insecurity. Like if he was insecure with the position that he was put in. Yeah. You know, maybe like sometimes when you're the youngest, when you feel like people don't care about you as much as they should. You're not as important. As important. Or like, so maybe because the position he was in, maybe he felt a little insecure. And I feel like that could have led him to feeling like he was worthless. Like maybe they weren't showing him as much love as his older brother was, or maybe he felt like the servants were. Maybe I don't know. You never know. He probably felt like the servants were getting treated better than he was. So maybe he was a little insecure.
Maybe he was insecure also that because he was the youngest, that he wasn't going to get as much as his brother. So just give me what I have anyway, and let me go and try to like do better with it. Yeah. So maybe that.
And insecurity is like it's evidence when you don't have an identity in something. Like you're not happy with who you are as a person. You feel like you don't live up or you don't measure up. You don't meet the standards. And a lot of times you find people, they feel like they don't measure up, they don't meet the standards, and that leads you, because we're talking about things that lead you there. So it's like, I don't live up here. Like I'm not wanted here. And that's probably what the enemy was whispering in his ear. Like, leave. You're not wanted here. You're not belonging here. Look, I mean, he's probably just in his room in this big house just thinking like, bro, I'm about to leave.
He probably has the smallest room.
Yeah. He's like,
even though it's probably huge.
Yeah, just thinking, looking outside the window like, man, I can't wait to get out of here. Like, and that's what the enemy was whispering, insecurity. And you find that people that are insecure, they're easily shaken. Like, they're easily shaken by every wind. It's like, they say something and then they want to go make it up. They want to go drink, or they want to go smoke, or they want to go do something to live up to, because they want to impress that person or something like that. And you find out that's what probably the prodigal son did. Right. He wanted to leave thinking that he would find more security, but the biggest security is Christ. That's what I would say.
And in the story, there's a part that says like he wasted it all on loose living. And I could only imagine, whenever you think of like the word loose living, you think of like a wild lifestyle. You think about whether it could be drugs, or you think about alcohol. And I think a lot of these things are addictions. And addictions, whether it's to drinking or whether it's to smoking or other things, like people have addictions to so many things that I can't even think of all of them to name them. I think all of these things can lead you to a path where you get to a place of feeling worthlessness and being alone.
And if you look at the madman of Gadara, the Bible says that he was cutting himself with stones and he was crying.
Like, you get it?
So I mean, like something that was causing him pain, he still found himself doing the very thing that caused him pain, and that's an addiction. Right. That's a definition of an addiction. Like you know it hurts you. You know it's not good for you. Like
you know
you need to stop, but you can't stop doing it. And that's, I mean, if that's not that's a spirit. Like people think it's just like, oh, you say it's a medical. It's not medical. It's something spiritual. It's something very spiritual. Yeah. So I mean, for you to take a stone, cut yourself, and then cry after that, it shows you. And a lot of people, they cry. I remember even I was listening to something, and someone said that he was scared to wake up.
Wow.
Because he knew, like, when he woke up, the feeling that he would get to do that very thing that he was addicted to would start. So sometimes he would just be scared. Like he'd be in his bed and he'd be like, no, I know the second I wake up that I'm gonna do this thing. So he would try to sleep more. He would try to do anything, but he knew that once he got up, he would do the very thing. That's people find themselves in those very things. That's an addiction. And I think that, I mean, it's those things can lead you to being worthless.
Right. And the Bible says that we shouldn't give any place to the devil. And I feel as though at times we give place to the devil by opening ourselves and opening our lives to things that we're not supposed to open ourselves to. And whether it could be, sometimes we open our lives to, whether it's through watching certain types of movies or reading certain types of books, or even some of the conversations that we have with our friends. We don't realize that these little things are opening our lives up to things that can enter in our life and also lead us down a path of worthlessness. And I think it's important that we give no place to the devil, and it's important that we fill ourselves or filled our life with spiritual things, whether going to church, whether listening to spiritual music, reading your Bible, finding a church, plugging in, and I think those are all important things.
The Bible says to guard your heart, because out of it come the issues of life. And I mean, there's so many things that can enter your heart.
Yeah.
Like anything can enter your heart. I mean, it's so easy now, especially with social media. I think, like, if you go on your phone right now, you can see some.
You can easily feel, that's very true.
And people feel like, I know people in the older generation probably say, like, okay, their temptations are also wild and they have to go through so many things. But in the younger generation, you just put on your phone and then go on Twitter. You could fall right now,
Facebook.
bro. Like, I mean, you could do
it.
Snapchat, you see people partying, living life. You see, you can lust. You can do anything. You can listen to music on one touch of the thing. Just type in one artist. Automatic things come up. It's like it's so easy, but the thing is that the technology is also a good thing. Like it's church and messages and spiritual things are so accessible as well. So
you have to choose.
Yeah, we have to choose and battle that. I would say
because it's what you're saying is so right. You can easily be influenced by social media, and being young, being impressionable, unfortunately, many of us are naive. You know, you think, oh, you know, that's me. That's not going to be me. That's my friend. My friend is doing it. But before you know it, it's you too. You're doing it too. You know, you go to one party and then you like that, you know, that sense of, oh, everyone's, you know, putting their hands up in the air, you know, partying. And then next thing you know, oh, next Friday there's another party. You want to come? And then, I want to come. Before you know it, your morals, your values, even if you're in the church, and then, you know, you start to like put aside even church activities to party or to drink or to do
that's
things
true.
Like
and
that.
I think the thing that actually enhances the tools that we're talking about is social media, because I know a lot of people tell me, like, when they go on Instagram and stuff, that actually builds up insecurity.
It does.
And it builds up the longing for acceptance. And like it makes you addicted. I mean, all these things build up the tools that we're talking about. Like you go on Instagram, you see like people having life, like living life. You're like, dang,
people
bro.
Your age are
people
That's
your
why
age.
you have to guard your heart.
Exactly.
You have to guard your heart. You have to guard your mind by putting the right things in your mind. Like I know for myself, I mean, I had to, you know, literally put certain people that I knew who were putting inspirational messages or scriptures or, you know, whatever good points or good things, messages, so that when I scroll down, all I see is, you know, scriptures.
Things.
All I see is, you know, motivating things or motivating scriptures that will encourage me to
build
do
yourself
better.
up.
Yeah, and build myself up, exactly. So you have to choose that, because if you say, oh, I'm gonna, you know, I'm a Christian, but then yet you have all these other things on your news feed, or, you know, if you're following the wrong people, you're easily going to be influenced.
That's a practical point.
And I'm sure even the prodigal son, he didn't have social media, but look how easily he was influenced. He was probably looking out the window. He probably went to school. He probably was in school with these kids, and, you know, he saw that, oh, these kids are, you know, they're having fun. You know, I want to go out and have fun.
And the Bible says bad company corrupts good morals. And I think that who you surround yourself with, because
that's so true.
You become who you like, who you walk with. That's why the Bible says, how can two walk together unless they agree? Like, you have to have the same mindset before you agree with someone. And whoever you agree with is probably who you're going to become like. And the people that the prodigal son surrounded himself with probably were judging on his end result. Like, look,
some were even harlots, so you can imagine where he was going.
So I think surrounding yourself with the right people and building yourself up, having a fellow Christian to call, to text, having a fellow believer that can build you up. Practical things like that, because sometimes we think it's a mystical thing, but it's practical steps that help us, I think.
And even speaking about bad company and when we're speaking about addictions, I remember that I had a friend, and even relating to the story of the madman of Gadara, because the madman of Gadara, the main aim of the devil is also to get to a place where he can disgrace you and he can embarrass you and different things of that. And I remember one of my friends, she found herself with bad company, and then as she continued to hang out with that bad company, it led to addictions of pornography and addictions of masturbation and all of these things, which are addictions that can take control and hold of your life. So it's important that you are careful what you open your life to and the friends that you open your life to, because you may think that, oh, it's just pornography that I'm watching, it's not a big deal, but it can ruin your whole life and it can get you to a place where you cannot even live or survive.
It says, be careful, little eyes, what you see, that old song. Be careful, ears, what you hear. It's so true, though. I mean, little things, little things that creep into your heart, out of your heart comes the issues. So once it enters, whatever, that's what's going to come out. That's what pours out. So, yeah.
We're out of time, and we've been talking about the spirit of worthlessness, and we've said that the main goal of the enemy is to get you to a place of destruction, get you to a place where you're a disgrace, get you to a place where he's able to kill, steal, and destroy. And we said that it's very important that you are led by the Spirit of God. It's very important that you remain in the house, that you fill your life with good company, you fill your life with fellowship with other believers. It's important that you listen to messages. It's important that you read your Bible and you seek advice from your pastors, and it's important that you remain in the church, because once you decide to separate yourself, once you decide to go out of the house, you can go on a journey of no return. And with that said, we're going to come back next week and continue this discussion of the prodigal son, and we hope to see you again. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for watching the First Love TV show. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week Wednesday at 7 p.m. CST. If you're a French speaker, we invite you to attend our first service, which begins at 9 a.m. Our second service starts promptly at 11 a.m., which is in English.
If we have found grace.
We are located at 7601 West Sam Houston Parkway South, Houston, Texas, 77036. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to receive alerts for our services and TV shows. Have a blessed and fruitful week.